Welcome to What is Going On in UC, and today we're going to talk about why we battle against the satanic world in the first place. The whole reason why we battle against the whole world is over lineage. We are battling to change the blood lineage. Now, what does that mean? Fundamentally, it means we are battling to change identity in two areas: self-identification and how we are identified by our progenitors. Now, can you change the way that you are identified by your progenitors? No. You cannot change what your life means to the people who created you, because your life had meaning in the moment that you were conceived. You were not there when you were conceived. You were actually just a sperm or an egg. So when those people who created you were thinking, oh, I want to have a child and my child will be like this, then you come out 9 months later and they go, wow, this is the substantiation of those dreams that I had. So you as child are identified by your parents as the substantiation of their dreams. That's part of your identity. So that's why when I say self-identification, that's simple. That's how you think about yourself. But lineage is also how you are thought of by specific people, your progenitors. Now, being the son of Satan means that your progenitors had a very off way of viewing you. Now, we know that within the satanic way of thinking, your progenitors maybe created you or were, you're just a byproduct of lust, right? So maybe they had no you in mind when you were created, right? And they had no sense of responsibility for you in your life. So how are you identified? You could have the issue of your self-identification. Okay, you could make up whatever you want. You say, I'm going to be a fireman. The other part of your identification is, these progenitors don't care too much about you, or they care more about their lust or more about their romance than they cared about you, and that you were just a byproduct. Well, when that comes clear to you, you say, well, I don't need that, and you can make up whatever you want. You can make up whatever designation you want as a human being. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. But that doesn't mean that that's the whole story of what you are, because human beings are in a parent-child relationship, whether we want to see that or not. Okay? And what happens is a lot of people are scarred by the fact they have satanic parents. Okay? And that is part of their identity, whether they want to see it or not, whether they've uncovered it or not. It is a significant source of lack of love psychology to be born from satanic people. What is your identity? When we talk about the whole battle of this movement, is about change of blood lineage, and we're talking about your identity. Again, one, who you are in your own mind and who you are in the minds of your progenitors. So how is it that we can change who we are in our minds? Right? Now, Jesus came and begged us to see ourselves differently. He did whatever he could to make us see that we are the children of God, right? He called some people the children of Satan. He said, you are of your father the devil, and your desire is to carry out his will, right? He did say that to some people, but he basically implored everybody to see ourselves anew. And that's a hard thing to do. I mean, people have really got to say goodbye to this feeling that they are everything that Satan's been saying that they are. And maybe they're in love with that identification. Maybe they're making it work for them, so they don't want to say goodbye to it. Okay, it's all those problems that Jesus was facing. But he was trying to help us see that we are God's children, that we are also valued, and that we are also free and powerful beings. We are free and powerful enough not to hate an enemy, but to even love an enemy, which seems counterintuitive, but we're awesome enough to do that. And he tried to teach us that. So that's one way that Jesus tried to change our self-identification. But we also know that because he was not able to become the true parents, he couldn't lay the foundation to change how we are viewed by our progenitors. And he spoke about this. He said, ye must be born again. You have to actually cease to be that thing that your false progenitors created and experience being born by somebody who wanted to give birth to you. Okay? And when that part of your identity is sort of transformed, you can live a completely different life. You can live without the psychological impediments of someone born by somebody who maybe didn't care so much or didn't give so much significance to your life. And these are worst case scenarios, because some fallen parents actually are very loving externally anyway, even though they can't clearly give their kid like some feeling that they come from God. Well, that's what the Messiah is. This person who comes from God. And when he says, I want to embrace you as my child, that you could be reborn through our relationship, he's trying to sew up that other part of our identity. Do you see how this is deeply psychological? If I wanted to say, I am the son of a fireman, right? And firemen always put in a good word so that their kids can become firemen. From that position, I can say, you know, I'm going to be a fireman one day. I'm the son of a fireman, and I'm going to be a fireman. I can say that confidently. So when I go in to take the test for fireman, I'm so confident that I'm going to walk out of there with a job. You know, this really affects me psychologically, me identifying myself as a fireman, the son of a fireman, right? So our behavior creates hell because we have this deep problem with the way we see ourselves, this self-identification and this awareness of how we are identified by our progenitors. And when Father says the whole problem of the world really is false parents, what he's really getting at is this whole point about how we see ourselves. Okay? This is why you cannot evaluate your parents from the position of how good they managed the movement or all this. The movement didn't even understand what the movement was about. Bottom line is, true parents loved us because they saw that we needed to pass through birth again and be reparented. And they did everything to embrace completely fallen people as if they were a new seed, or like a new sperm, a new egg, what do they call it? A zygote, right? Like a new little baby in the womb, and try to give us a new life, you know? And the whole idea of moving into centers and moving away from our families, early church, is totally in line with that concept. I was in the movement 10 years before I realized still how my father and mother, my physical parents, were still psychologically driving. The psychology I adopted from my parents was very meritocratic, and I was still very meritocratic. So meritocratic, I was trying to make a name for myself at the expense of my children. That's very satanic, because then they're going to grow up without a parent, in conflict about how I see them, and it's a cycle. You know, and I had to actually, you know, say goodbye to that. I had to say goodbye to my parents. You know, some people some people acted that out by actually leaving their parents' houses and moving into the church center. But please understand, this whole world would be completely different if people identified themselves differently. Currently, we don't even know what it means that we treat ourselves like Satan's child. We don't know what that means. We treat ourselves like Satan's child, and we have satanic expectations of ourselves and satanic expectations of our fellow man. And so this is why Satan is just allowed to act through us unimpeded. You know, we don't expect more from ourselves. You know, that's our baseline psychology is just destroyed, and that's what the fall means. And it really has to do with the way in which we're brought into this world. And that is a sexual thing. You're supposed to be awake, you know, psychologically awake. We're supposed to be in a direct dominion of God before we had children, so that the act of making the children is fully conscious thing where the child is an outgrowth of that. You know, so this is the kind of world that we're trying to create, and that's why this is the battle. The battle is over that. Anyway, talk to you later.